We finally made it to part 3 of the Vanderpump Rules reunion.
Raquel comes clean about the timeline of her relationship with Sandoval.
But even her final confessional isn't giving us the whole story.
And it has us wondering, what is going on with Raquel?
Welcome back to the Real Couchwives podcast, where we overanalyze all things Bravo.
So the Bombshell confessional that was so heavily teased is less about what was said and more that it was said at all, given that Tom so adamantly wanted Raquel to kind of keep her mouth shut.
Yeah, she was definitely really dispelling a lot of the narrative that Sandoval and herself had been sticking to throughout this reunion. And more than anything, I was just annoyed that she hadn't come up with this 6 days sooner. Like, why did she stick to these lies for so long?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that she's still sticking to some of these lies, even in this third attempt to come clean.
Yeah, I know. There were so many things. I feel like what stood out the most was probably the timeline that she finally confirmed starting in Mexico, the fact that they'd already hooked up on the first night in Mexico.
Multiple times,
and she'd still gone ahead and kissed Schwartz in Mexico while having done that. And yeah, it was just super weird, because then she goes into talking to Lisa Vanderpump about how she'd put a cap on the whole Sandoval thing, which is clearly not true, because then a few days later in her confessional, she says, I was already hooking up with Sandoval, and I was continuing to hook up with Sandoval in Mexico.
Well, that's it. It really just disproved basically the entire hour that we had just watched, where the one thing that Tom Sandoval was really latching onto was that this has only happened one time, a long time ago. And that's what he just kept yelling at everyone about. When everyone was trying to make these comments, he kept saying it was one time.
Yeah.
They all did say it doesn't matter if it was one time or if it was 100 times, to which he says it does matter.
Yeah.
So you are saying that what you did was terrible.
Yes.
Because it was more than one time. It would have been worse, bad regardless, but he really just thought this lie was not going to come undone.
Yeah, and he really had to latch onto it, and yet everybody kept on also saying it wasn't just one time, right? James in particular was no, it was not just one time. I don't understand why you're saying that. It was multiple times. We know it was multiple times. The internet knows that it's multiple times.
Well, that's it, and that's why a lot of these bombshell confessionals were not super bombshells, because I think we had been putting this together. I think what made this so shocking is that Raquel had really even come out and said Tom doesn't want me talking about this. And that's what made the whole thing kind of scary, to be honest.
Well, that and the fact that he is painting it as this bombshell interview where she finally tells the truth, but we also get confirmation during that bombshell that she is still lying, right? We see them flash to the photo of them in St. Louis together, when she's literally just said, no, I've never been to St. Louis. Or no, she doesn't say that.
I do not recall.
Exactly. I do not recall. Exactly. The most court-safe answer you can possibly say. And then also the really disturbing thing too is that she says that she suggested that they have a couple, a throuple, sorry, my bad, with Ariana.
Yeah, that was so strange. I don't know where she thought she was going with that. She's well, I'm in love with Tom Sandoval, and Ariana's my friend, so maybe we could just be a throuple. And then we don't have to tell her that we were cheating.
Because she's just going to be so happy for us, and we're all going to be one happy little relationship together.
Yeah. It was so weird.
It was very weird, and it felt very much I think throughout this time that the Scandoval has been unraveling, and people on the internet have been sleuthing around and digging in to all of their social medias, all of the information that they can possibly get. There's been a lot of insinuations that Raquel is a little bit of a single white female and kind of stealing Ariana's life. And so there's similarities between outfits that they've worn and things like that. And Ariana saying Raquel has no identity. She has only identity in men. And this is just kind of her globbing on to Ariana's life, right? Her going after Sandoval, wanting the relationship that Sandoval and Ariana had, but having that relationship at the expense of Ariana because she so desperately wanted to be. It's very Ingrid Goes West.
It's so true. Honestly, they're just in so deep that I don't understand why they don't just come clean at this point. What is the point for her to go halfway into the truth,
Yeah.
She starts off this interview by saying, I want to tell the truth. It's eating me alive that I'm not telling the truth. Also, side note, sorry. It feels like she's more upset that she's lied about this than the fact that she actually was having an affair with her best friend's boyfriend. That is the part that is eating her up.
Oh, it's so true. It's it just kills me inside that I had to be lying about this entire time. And it's didn't kill you inside that you were doing this to like your best friend. Like
No, and like I think we'd mentioned this before too. Like that's also the part that Schwartz seems to be really caught up on. He's like, I told Sandoval that he needs to come clean because like he can't keep this from her and it's gonna blow up in his face. It wasn't the fact that they had gone and done this. Like it just feels like they just really don't have a grasp on the situation, Sandoval included. But yeah, she starts off this interview saying that she wants to come clean, but then she goes like halfway in and she does say some things that are like pretty damning, but she doesn't go all the way.
Yeah, well, and it is interesting that they are kind of like leeching on so heavily to the lying aspect of it, because of course they think that cheating is not a big deal. Look at what Sandoval and Schwartz have done the last 10-15 years, right? Like the amount of time that we've at least been seeing them, they've been very comfortable with the fact that they're always cheating on their girlfriends.
Yeah, it's just the part of it getting out that they're less comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. And the humiliation it's gonna bring to Ariana. But I loved her response to that. It was like, yeah, I'm not humiliated. They're humiliated.
Yes. All of her one-liners were just incredible throughout all three parts, especially this one. Yeah, even Sandoval, I think at one point said like, they're calling us compulsive liars, but like, of course we're gonna lie about this. Again, like they're just they're spending so much time talking about the lie and not the actions.
The actual thing that you guys have done. Yeah. Why do you have such a problem with that?
The part in this confessional that I think started like, at first you're still like, wow, Raquel, this is so strange. You're kind of like giddy when you talk about, Tom Sandoval and like being in Mexico and that you met his mom. So not giving the emotions that you expect to see. And then I think it started to turn a little bit like just very uncomfortable when the producer asked, what happened the night in the jacuzzi, and she says nothing, and her face, gives it away. She even said that she has a bad poker face, and then she kind of gets really somber and she's like, I'm not supposed to disclose all of this information. Like Tom's told me not to. Especially because I've been so isolated and he's the one person I do have, and if I betrayed him I had nothing. That was very much like a blink twice if you need help moment.
And it was interesting that she did finally, I guess, reveal this information about the fact that they did hook up that night over the jacuzzi and everything after beach day. In some ways it was a relief for the audience, right, for us to finally hear this and have this confirmed, because like we knew that they were lying, and like everybody on the cast like seemingly knew that they were lying at this point. And it's just interesting though that she feels like this is the absolute worst thing that they could possibly admit to doing, because it's true, it is very bad to hook up with somebody while they're, or to hook up with the person when their girlfriend is at their grandmother's funeral. Like that's definitely a bad look. But we then find out later from like both like Reddit and Ariana's interview with Call Her Daddy, it's confirmed that they had also hooked up while Ariana was in the house, and basically like Sandoval had just kind of gone between the two bedrooms, which is just like disgusting.
That's so true.
Like the fact that she's acting as if this is the worst possible thing that they could do and like the worst thing that she could admit to, it's like, well, no, we actually even know that there are yet still more worser things to be coming out from all of this.
That's just it. It's like, I was thinking about it. It's like you have had obviously the season, but they were going to come to clean then. You had the pre-interview to the reunion where you were alone with Andy. You had the reunion, and now you have this 6 days later confessional that you're doing. You've had 3 chances to tell the truth. And yeah, granted, you do say a lot of things. At least it's something. But there's still things that you're holding back, and it's just like, this just looks worse and worse and worse, because like these things are going to come out. The internet is, people are very crafty. It's not even the internet, like all of the cast is going off on podcasts and like talking about all of these things, and like friends are coming out of the woodwork, and like people are putting things together. She kind of like gives enough, like you said, to protect herself. Like I think finally she realizes that she needs to break away from Tom, because there is no way that those two together are going to survive this. I guess maybe that's her doing this.
Yeah, and I have to wonder if like there was a moment that happened in the reunion that caused her to decide that she is going to break ranks and like come and like have this confessional moment and actually tell the truth, because she's had up to this point like 2 to 3 weeks right in between the news breaking and them actually filming this. She's had like endless conversations probably like with her sister and with her parents about what's happened here and like how she's going to handle it. And she's up until this point, continued to just like toe the line and like tell the truth and like say what Sandoval wants her to say. And now here we are, like 3 days later or 6 days later. But it's just like, what an amazing reunion we would have had
I
if we had
know.
gotten this all of these details actually coming out live.
Well, now there's all
Like,
these follow-up questions
right?
that we don't get to have answered. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good point. That's a good question to ask. I wonder if it's her kind of seeing when she was watching in the trailer that like they actually were, like Ariana and Tom were still being intimate. Is there a moment that you think made her kind of go against him?
Yeah, I think there was one moment when Lala says to Raquel, like, this is your future. This is how he's going to talk to you one day. And it's after he makes the comment about the t-shirt.
The comment heard around the world.
Yeah, exactly. Literally breaking TV screens all over the world. Yeah, so I think after he said that comment, Lala's like, this is what you have to like look forward to. This is gonna be you in a few years. He's gonna cheat on you. He's gonna do all this stuff. He's gonna say things like this to you, like the person that he's allegedly in love with and like has been in a committed relationship with for 9 years.
Right.
And I do have to wonder if that kind of like got through to Raquel, because I think it was actually, oh, maybe it wasn't that moment, but there was a moment when Raquel like kind of like hears something like that from Lala, and she like gets up and she like walks away and she like goes to get like a bottle of water or whatever, right? And I just like think that that's kind of like the one thing that Raquel is really hypersensitive to, and she even brings it up in the finale of like, you know, I'm realizing how could you be capable of doing this to somebody that you love?
Yeah,
and it makes me wonder if you could do it to me one day.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely could be it. And just like the more that she's kind of like sitting and reflecting upon it a little bit, if you need a refresher on what that comment was, I think Andy had asked if Tom Sandoval had like hooked up with anyone between him and Raquel. And Ariana said that like, yes, like they had been intimate. And then he was just so disgusting and was like, oh yeah, she kept her t-shirt on. It was super hot. It's just like,
yeah.
And then just everyone's reaction of just like pure shock and disgust. My favorite part of that moment is Tom Schwartz like kneels, like just like sits with his hands in his head. And
yeah,
I think out loud, I'm like, this is the moment he realized he backed the wrong horse.
Yeah. This is the moment when you realize I have 2 bars with this guy. One of them is massively in debt, totally struggling, not backed by Lisa Vanderpump, no safety net, no nothing. And this is the guy that I'm tied to for the rest of my life through the debts that we have together.
It was such a good meme. And then I think Sandoval was like, sorry, like he apologized to Schwartz, which a lot of people notice. And it's just like, dude, don't apologize to Schwartz. You're like,
of all people, like, come on.
It was just, yeah, it was just so terrible. And you know what? I say best moment. Obviously, that was a horrible moment.
Oh, yeah. Worst moment.
You know, I think similar to what Ariana and Lala were saying is like, good, I'm happy this happened. I'm happy this was explosive. I'm happy that Sandoval is acting in this way because he's showing his true colors and he can't hide behind his perfectly coiffed narrative. Like he's like breaking in real time and like he doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. His bad behavior is like fully on display right now.
100%. I guess Raquel is starting to see that and maybe get a little bit worried. You know, not to make any excuses for what Raquel did, because it's just like, it's completely indefensible. You know, she continued this facade to Ariana for months. It was like her best friend. There's nothing that we can ever say that's going to make any piece of this okay. It's just like, I think we're starting to see a little bit more of the layers behind her relationship with Tom Sandoval, like in this confessional where she's literally scared to come out and tell the truth because she's like been so isolated that he's the only person that she has. It literally read like someone in a cult who like, you know, is scared to break rank and like to come out against kind of their abuser. Like it was, I find that was a really confusing confessional to watch.
Well, and you know, we made fun of it last week when she said I was living in my own little reality, or at least I made fun of it last week when she was saying that. But she for 7 months, like she was being fed a narrative. She was being told one thing. She's now like in this very like intense situation where her life has crumbled. She's hearing the truth like happening like right in front of her as she's like watching the reunion live stream. And she's like having to come to terms with the fact that like everything that she's probably heard since July last year is not actually what it was. And she's kind of like coming to terms with that. She's grappling with it. Obviously she probably was a little bit brainwashed to think that they were in this bad relationship, that, Ariana wasn't as nice of a person as she maybe thought at one point that she was, and that Raquel was the savior for Sandoval, when in fact, like, he was like, this awful human being to her, like, and he's completely destroyed her life.
Well, that's it.
For his own ego.
Yeah, essentially. And she did definitely come off as brainwashed. The only thing is, like, I can't even give her that much credit, because she was also best friends with Ariana. And it's like, yes, maybe Tom was feeding her this narrative, but it's kind of the same criticism I give to Schwartz, who says, like, oh, like, I thought their relationship was in such a bad place. Like, you have both also seen Ariana, right? Like, and she's not saying these things to you. You're only getting it from one person. You see them interacting together. You see them kissing. You see them, like, going on dates. They wanted to believe that. Like, the same way that they tell Ariana, like, oh, she turned a blind eye. So did Raquel about their relationship.
It's true. And Raquel was very willing to, like, just believe whatever Sandoval was telling her, it seems, right? Like, as soon as he makes the comment in the trailer, in the second part of the reunion, when he goes and talks to her in the trailer. I can't
what
even remember.
Is time anymore?
What is time, honestly?
This reunion has taken up our whole life.
It really has. And we watched it so many times. The, like, uncensored version and then the censored version. Like, I've seen both of them. I'm, like, comparing the differences. I haven't talked to my mom. I haven't talked to my dad. I haven't talked to my dog.
Yeah, bravo VPR fans. Do you need help? Are you okay? Leave a comment. We're here for you.
We do need help. But yeah, they're talking in the trailer and he's making the comment about the fashion and how, like, he's implying that Ariana was so mean to him. And then when all of a sudden she was saying nice things about his fashion sense, he was like, wow, what? And, like, Raquel's kind of, like, going along with the story of, like, yeah, Ariana was really mean to you. Yes, I do remember you telling me about how Ariana was always talking down to you. And I would never do that because I'm a good little Miss Little Homewrecker, as Ariana calls her. So, I just...
It's extremely confusing. Like, there literally needs to be a human interest piece on Raquel. Obviously, her pageant, like, background plays into things as well.
I think so.
People have said this, like, not even in a mean way. Like, I literally hope she gets help because she, like, has zero identity. She needs so much validation. Like, to do that to someone and then to also, like, completely juxtapose to the way that she was breaking down in this confessional, giving us literally less than zero emotion during the rest of the reunion, which is what we're going to get into next, as we try to speed recap the reunion. Before we do that, please be sure to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this Vanderpump Rules tour that we've been on, and if you want to see us at BravoCon, we have to get to 1,000 subscribers to get there. We're getting there. We're inching our way up there. So huge thank you to all of our couchies. So we'll backtrack a little bit to the actual reunion where Raquel comes out right off the bat. She says that she's really embarrassed and she's not proud of herself and she owes a lot of people in the room an apology. I feel like those were the right words, but they just lacked any type of emotion or empathy, like, coming out of it, especially kind of juxtaposed to what we had seen or what we would see later in this confessional, where she actually finally shows some sort of, like, remorse and emotion. And it was just so strange to see the way that she was just completely detached from that entire hour, right? There was nothing. People have said, like, the lights were on, but no one was home.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got the sense of that. I felt like I could see that she was trying to make some points throughout this reunion. There definitely felt like there were a few moments where that was like, okay, that was clearly like a planted thing that you guys knew that you were going to want to discuss and you were going to want to touch on. But yeah, like, just kind of like starting off the bat, Andy asks about the Havasu trip and the Las Vegas trip that the girls take as Katie's kind of like divorce party, like post-divorce, I guess, girls trip.
Yeah.
And Andy asks Katie, like, why did you invite Raquel? And Katie says, well, I was trying to forge a friendship, but I felt like she was being misled. The implication being that she was misled by Sheena and this whole kind of like pursuing of Schwartz. And then right off the bat, like, Raquel is like, I was so uncomfortable on that trip. How did you feel about her statement towards that? Because I have a lot of feelings.
I was just, to be honest, annoyed that we even went back to that at all. Like, who cares at the end of the day? Like, it's funny because we did an episode on this, which was like, this was Raquel's villain origin story, right? Like, this was the exact moment where she felt bullied at the trip, and then she went back, and then we find out that that's when the affair had started. And you know, there was part of me that did feel bad for her on that trip before we realized like all of the terrible things that would later come out from her in Sandoval.
Yeah.
I just don't care. Like, you know, even whether they were or were not mean to you, Ariana was not, and you are the one that you betrayed. I mean, she's the one that you betrayed. So I was just kind of like, why are we even like given this space?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty fair. I think what just annoys me about how she approaches this is, this really was an opportunity for Raquel to kind of like get in good with the girls, and instead, like, even, you know, before like she really gives them a chance, she just does decide that she's gonna go be Team Sandoval, and she's gonna go hang out with the guys instead of hanging out with the girls. And like right off the bat, she basically just kind of like ruins any chances of them like forming these friendships that maybe wouldn't have led to her making this decision to have like a 7-month-long affair with this guy, right?
Yeah, no, that's totally true, because at the end of the day, like, the validation that she needs doesn't come from women, it comes from men, and that was obviously more important to her at that time.
Yeah, luckily they don't rest on this like too long, because as you say, there is a lot for them to go through. They do, of course, bring up the whole like James and Lala thing. You know, Raquel in particular throws out like that James and Lala can't talk because they have had their own little secret rendezvous once upon a time. And Lala says it perfectly when she's like, I wasn't your best friend. Like, that's why I did that. Like, I didn't know who you were. You were a nobody. But this obviously like then leads into Andy talking about how like, okay, well, let's talk about the mistress comment, right? Which we once again have had like so many times, had to like go over this again and again.
So many times. But that's just it. It's like, this is a group who have all cheated on each other, who have all done these things. Like, I get it. Like, we can point fingers all day long, but they're not the same. And like, I don't understand why it's so hard for people to understand the severity of this particular situation compared to all these other things that have happened in the past, and why we keep giving life to it, as you know. I think in that moment, actually, Lala is like, it's not the same thing because I wasn't your best friend, and like, you guys were hooking up the whole time. But she said it with more expletives. And then Tom goes like, it was one time. And then that's when they made the like, if it was 1 or 100, it's the same thing. And then he goes, no, it's not. And then Ariana's like, yes, it was. And he goes, no, it's not.
Oh my God, how did I completely miss that?
Oh my gosh. Could we just take a moment to discuss how Tom Sandoval's comebacks are literally that of a child? Like, his clapbacks are terrible.
His clapbacks are so terrible. And it does feel like the clapbacks aren't pre-rehearsed, but like his little interjections are just, they're so useless, right? Like the things that Lala, the things that Ariana, the things that James are able to kind of like come back with, like so like off the cuff, is like so impressive. Whereas like Sandoval, what he has to do is he has to plant stories, he has to plant ideas, he has to like come like pre-prepared with all of the things that he's going to bring up, because otherwise he can't do it. And we see that when he goes like the mumbling, like that he does like the James Kennedy, he's like boo, 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 boo.
Yeah, his track, at least on this one, seems to be mimicking someone. He just like says what they say back to them, or just going, this is the smartest person in the world, like this person knows everything. She said this so many times, I've now caught on. Like in his first in his fight with Ariana on the like the finale episode, when they finally start yelling at each other, he goes like, oh, like this person knows everything. He did it to James. It's just like such a weird comeback. Anyways, I digress. I just thought it was really funny.
No, well, and I think that feeds well into kind of like this whole Oliver situation, right? Because obviously they've talked about Havasu, they've talked about Las Vegas, they talked about Lala and James cheating, and they have to bring up kind of like the mistress comment, which leads to them talking about Oliver. And as I say, you know, Sandoval comes pre-prepared with the topics that he wants to go after. And one of the things that he really decides that he wants to get into is this like alleged information that Lala had ahead of time that Oliver was still in a relationship. He says, "How long did you know before?" And then Raquel interjects, "How long did you know that Oliver wasn't separated from his wife?" Saying this to Lala, of course, which is obviously that they're trying to like get Lala caught in this kind of like lie, as if Lala knew that Oliver wasn't in a relationship, or sorry, was in a relationship with his wife still. And that Lala like essentially like set up Raquel to go make out with Oliver and to kind of like, you know, become a mistress essentially, which is just so insane because earlier in the reunion, Raquel had admitted that she and Lala were together when Oliver told them that he was separated.
Yeah.
So clearly that contradicts what you're saying here. But then it's also just very strange because, you know, we see in a deleted scene, I think it like was a few months ago when obviously this would have actually come out like originally, but we see in a deleted scene them sitting at dinner at Vanderpump Paris. They're having the conversation about Oliver with Lisa, you know, Katie's there, like the whole gang's there, and they are talking about Oliver's like relationship status. And Lala's the one that says, "I'm pretty sure he's in a relationship still." And Lisa's like, "Oh no, I'm pretty sure he's separated from his wife." So like this is a deleted scene where like we see that like this conversation's already happening about the fact that he has like an unclear relationship status. And Raquel is at this dinner. She's fully present in this moment. And yet she still like kind of pursues this guy that she knows that he like has an unclear relationship status. She knows that Lala's interested in him, but she still pursues him anyways. And then like she makes out with this guy, right? Like, wouldn't you not do that if you didn't really have like a clear cut answer for like what was going on here? Like, you know, you live in LA, you know that guys lie. Like you've been in a relationship with James, you know that guys lie. Like
but her like her competitiveness is what kind of like kicked in there, because also like I doubt she even really cared that much about Oliver. I think she only like started to be interested in him when Lala showed interest. It was also just another one where like, to be honest, like anything they throw out right now, no one wants to hear. Like it's just not going to absolve them from anything. And I think that's why everyone just keeps trying to, everyone's just like, boo.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what they say, like they can't get the actual like conversation that they want to have happen at this reunion because everybody rejects it at this point. Like even James gets completely off scot-free from talking about any cheating that he actually did in his relationship while he was with Raquel, because he's like, it's moot at this point, right? Like it doesn't matter. That's not what we're here to discuss. And honestly, I'm not going to cop to it because I don't want to get into it, and I don't want to like potentially get anything transferred over to me when these are the people that are like on trial, right?
Oh
like,
yeah, and everyone was very clear on the assignment except for I think Sandoval and Raquel.
And Lisa Vanderpump a little bit.
Yeah, Lisa at
like,
least started
teetering.
Yeah, at least here she started to, I think, like come a little bit more to the defense of like Ariana and against Raquel. But like I almost feel like she went harder against Raquel than she did go against Tom, which is also not very shocking.
That brings us in perfectly, because then we do go like we kind of transition away from the Oliver conversation and we start to talk about Schwartz and Raquel. Andy obviously like asked like, you know, what were you guys thinking? Like what happened here? Like what's going on? And Lisa, of course, then takes it upon herself to like ask Raquel like, why would you go have done this thing with Schwartz when you were already with Sandoval? And this is the interesting time when like Raquel's like, oh, well, you know, I put a cap on Sandoval, which she addresses in the confessional. And we find out that she had not put a cap on Sandoval.
No cap, which I think means something else, but
was fully like still very into Sandoval when she did make out with Schwartz. So it's just weird that she decided to admit that in the confessional. But yeah, like yet another time for Lisa to go after Raquel instead of going after Schwartz or Sandoval for like, A, Schwartz, like, why would you do this? You know, this was the wrong thing to do. B, Sandoval, you were seeing this person. Why were you getting him to like pursue this girl that you were interested in? Very strange.
I mean, yeah, as James said, just very creepy and weird and incestuous, that whole side of the room.
That whole side of the room. Definitely. Especially in that month of August last year.
It was so, yeah, it was really gross. What are I'm trying to remember what happened from there. There's too many things.
Well, the one thing that I felt was kind of missing from this conversation about the Schwartz and Raquel makeout was actually the conversation around Terry, and Terry's kind of like objections to Schwartz and Raquel having kind of like had this makeout. Terry obviously being Katie's mom, who had come to Las Vegas and met up with the girls at the girls' night there, and had kind of like, you know, pled a little bit to Raquel to be like, don't make out with Tommy. Like, you know, I've seen the pain that my daughter is going through throughout this divorce. And then Terry, you know, the hero of the season, comes through in like the penultimate episode, and she like confronts Schwartz. She's like, why did you make out with her? Like, why did you do this? You knew that you were going to cause pain to my daughter. And she did an incredible job. And then I just can't even believe that we didn't even address not just that, but then like the fight that breaks out between Raquel and Terry, and the fight that we don't get to see on screen between Terry and Sandoval. I'm just like,
so true. Honestly, yeah, I was also confused why we seem to have spent more times with like Lala, James, even and Oliver than we did like that moment. I think Schwartz got off really scot-free this entire time. Like he was really not put on blast, I think, as much as he should have been.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we literally spent so much time talking about mistresses this season, like an insane amount of time. We talked about it throughout the season. We talked about it like after the season. We've talked about it throughout the reunion. Like it's too much. Like I don't need to hear this word again. Like,
yeah,
what is this?
I totally agree. There was like so many other things that I feel like you can say. Also, going on that whole thing when Andy's like, well, why did you do this? Raquel's answers also were just so weird. She's like, oh, I just like wanted to know what it would be like to make out with Schwartz. Yeah. She also said she wanted to know what it would be like to be with Sandoval, who's someone that she respects. Like, why are you curious about so many weird things?
Yeah. You don't need to be this curious. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, like, reel it back.
Yeah. Shut down the curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. Well, and it was interesting too, like going back to the actual conversation about like Schwartz and Raquel making out. She weirdly kind of passes the buck to Schwartz. And this is another moment that I'm wondering if it was like pre-planned and like they went into it being like, okay, Schwartz, you're going to take the fall for this. Like you're going to be the one that like admits that you were the one pursuing Raquel in this moment. And that it wasn't like some weird, like twisted thing. And he does it. He's like, yeah, that was me. I take responsibility for that.
I did think that was so weird because we've never seen him act that way.
Because he'd only ever do it if Sandoval asked him.
It's so true. Oh my gosh, it's so true. It was totally planned. I remember seeing it too. I'm like, this is weird. Like, it felt like he was like, oh, you passed me the ball. Yeah. I did it. I was the instigator. Sandoval said, okay, are you happy?
Good job. Can you help me run my bar now? I'd love some assistance in this. No, I'm gonna go on tour. Bye. See you in a couple months when we start filming. Yeah, anyways, so I don't know. I just thought that was kind of strange. But
it was
then
strange.
We move on to talking about yet another relationship. I didn't think that we were going to address in all of this, but it is James and Lala's flirty relationship.
We went back to James and Lala. I was like, guys,
and we like go back to them like in like a season like I think 6 basically in their like Big Bear like cottage experience when they go to like I think it was Rob's house, like Sheena's boyfriend Rob's house.
Oh yes, Rob hangs a TV in 7 minutes. Rob,
5 seconds, amazing, best man ever. And you know, like so like Andy asked like about the fact that like James and Lala have had this flirty relationship, and asked Raquel if she had ever asked James about it and like if anything had ever happened between the two of them. And Raquel just says like the weirdest thing. Like I just don't understand. And this is what makes me think there's like something disconnected in her brain, because she says, I felt like Lala had no respect for me, which is like, okay, cool. Yes. So far, so good.
Lala's like, I still don't, or something.
Literally. And then she says, I think Lala resented me because she loved the attention she got from James, which is like maybe true because maybe she did love the attention that she got from James. But then she says, and since I stepped into the picture, that attention wasn't on her anymore, which is literally, if you go back and watch season 6, is like literally the opposite of like what you're actually seeing in Big Bear, because James is very much like clearly like super into Lala and has like little to no interest in being with Raquel. She's just literally there like for most of the season.
And that was like a big problem in their relationship that like we saw unfold on camera. I think a lot of the pieces she's trying to put together just like aren't adding up either. Like I think she said it a couple times in this reunion as well around you know, why all this happened again. And she's like, oh, you know, like my personality shifted and like I went from being like a people pleaser to only pleasing myself. And I just like, I kept being like, why do you keep using this as like as if it's like a good excuse? Like you can please, like you can put yourself first without betraying your best friend and cheating with her long-term boyfriend. Like how, and like I think she's like, oh, I was living in the moment, or like she just has all these things where like
all about pleasing herself.
It's just like if you had so much time to think about these excuses, they'd be a little bit better.
You had 7 months to think about how you were going to explain this to yourself. Well, I love that you brought that up, because I just thought it was so crazy that I'm like, so this is your version of like this overcorrection that you've done. Like you've gone from like you allegedly like pleasing people like to a fault to like this where you're like literally damaging people and like only thinking about yourself, only thinking about your pleasure. Like this is too much. Like if you really went from all the way over here to all the way over here, like this is a bad place to be in. Like you need to get back into like this.
That is how she's framing it, overcorrection. I think the way that she said it like last week was that like the pendulum swung too far the other way. Like I feel like she's using these analogies that people use for very like commonplace things and not for like you had an affair.
Which is like literally what happened. So anyway, so they talk about the late James and Lala thing. But then they start to talk about the open relationship comment. Obviously we've heard about this a couple times, like both in the finale, in the Raquel comment that Raquel comment that Sheena brings to the group, saying that like, you know, Raquel had been told by Sandoval at Coachella that he and Ariana were in an open relationship, and then Raquel had kind of made the comment that she made the joke that she would have rather make it with Ariana and Sandoval, which feels like a whole thing.
That's the throuple.
A throuple, yeah, of course. It's the best version of this relationship that could possibly exist. But then Schwartz, of course, has to bring up, for some reason, he needed to say something, I guess, in this moment. He says, well, you know, I think the origin of this open relationship story, it was based on a rumor that was going around the valley about how the two of them, meaning Ariana and Sandoval, had hooked up with Billie Lee. And then they flash to the scene, and I wanted to ask you if you remember what this scene is that they flash to, like either like just like in the moment or like what it's from, which season.
So wasn't she only in one season? Was Billie Lee in multiple seasons? I think she was
technically in season 6 and season 7.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I remember that much from Billie Lee is like when she got super mad at everyone because they didn't invite her to girls' night.
Yeah, that was really bad. Well, okay, so interestingly, I legitimately thought it was very interesting that they chose this scene that they flashed to, because Sandoval's walking into SUR. He sees Billie Lee. She says, "Hey, birthday boy." And then
it was it was a birthday, so I forgot already. I guess I didn't pay enough attention.
I'm gonna tell you, because it's super interesting that they chose this scene in particular. She says that he walks into SUR and then he sees Ariana, and Ariana's like staring like death daggers like right at him as she's like pouring she looked very angry. And you know, so what's just happened is Sandoval's at like a boozy brunch with the boys, with like Jax, Peter and Tom, and then James joins them as they go like smoke cigars. And while they're smoking cigars, they decide to swap stories about like all of their ladies and all of the like sexual activities that their ladies have gotten up to. And Sandoval decides, this is the best opportunity in the world for me to out my bisexual girlfriend for her sexuality, and also let everybody know that I was present while Ariana and Lala were hooking up in the back of my car, so that he can get like some cool boy points for like having witnessed this girl on girl action.
It was
Yeah,
that one.
it was that one. And so he says that at his birthday party, he goes to Sir, his birthday party that Ariana never let him have at the house. He goes to Sir, and then like she confronts him and she's like, I can't believe that you outed me. I can't believe you did this. And then of course his like retort is all about how he's upset that he wasn't included, and he's just like total bleep bleep bleep.
Wow, that's such a deep, that's a
deep cut.
It is a deep cut, and it's so interesting that they chose that exact
of all the scenes.
one.
Of all the scenes, why would that be the one that you would choose? That seems like the worst. There's so many more.
It's probably for
flashbacks,
fun like you to pick up on. That's a nice Easter egg. I like that.
Maybe. But yeah. Anyways, I just thought that was insane. That's what they kind of like decided to choose out of all the scenes that probably existed of Billie Lee interacting with Sandoval. Anyways, yeah, so we go in that direction. They address the open relationship. Ariana says, we've never had a threesome. We've never had this. There was no grounds for that to happen. Raquel then like attempts to apologize to Ariana, like completely missing the buck again.
Yeah, I love her again, like just deadpan delivery. I'm really sorry, Ariana. Like just like nothing, there's nothing behind it. She's not remorseful. And then I don't remember exactly which comeback it was, but Ariana was just like incredible with the comebacks toward her. My absolute favorite was when she's like, "You are a dementor, like you just like suck the life out of everyone, and like I hope that Charlotte haunts you."
I loved that line. I love the idea of Charlotte haunting Raquel. Like
she just
had Raquel and her horrible dog, apparently.
She just had like the best comebacks, and like this is one of the pieces that just had me so dumbfounded. And I don't think, I'm not sure if it's at this point in the reunion, but at some point the question of like, are you guys in love comes up from Andy. And like honestly, I just kept thinking like how hard it must be for Ariana to hear them say that to each other, like even like whether it be true or not. And I think like she tries to kind of like cover it in like laughter a little bit and like in some of her retorts to her. But like there was one scene where Ariana's kind of like, you guys are disgusting, like you are nothing, like let that sink in. And they do kind of like a split screen where you have Ariana and you have Raquel, and Raquel is literally just sitting there blinking like Bambi, like a Bambi-eyed bee. And that was when I was like, dude, we just watched a whole season of this girl cry about facing like aging out of pageants. And I do love that they did like the kind of montage. That's when you're like, Andy has said actually, he's like, I don't know if she was like on something for this reunion or if she was just completely detached, but like that was, I just find like it was the weirdest behavior, because like that would be enough to make someone like, if you're not going to cry because you're remorseful, I feel like at least you'd cry at being yelled at, even though they're warranted to yell at you. But to just like she must have just turned off and like went to another place because like she was not there.
Well, and I loved Lala's response in that as well, right? When she's saying like, you because basically Ariana said like, I can't think of two worse people and I'm completely cutting you out of my life. And she says that kind of once they've both admitted that they are in love with each other. And Lala's like, this was the best case scenario to come out of this, right? Like you got out of this like torture chamber of a relationship and you've eliminated two horrendous people from your life. And then Lala also like turns it over to Raquel and says like, you're not going to have this forever either. Like, meaning Sandoval is going to cheat on you, and that this is going to continue to happen. The history is going to continue to like repeat itself. And I actually kind of think that this is like the moment that it also like really sets in for Raquel that this is what's happening. Like that's kind of what I think what we were talking about like at the beginning of all this, right? With the confessional and how she decided to like finally, approach this conversation and like maybe come forward with a little bit more truthfulness. You see that this person is capable of cheating on his girlfriend of 9 years that he has a house with, he has a relationship with, he has like a home with, like they have this whole setup. And like, this is kind of like the point when, you realize, oh, wow, this is what's really going to happen. And I think it might be kind of like what's going to potentially set us up for a pretty interesting season 11 too, right? Like,
Yeah.
It does sound like, she's going to come back next year. It sounds like he's going to come back next year if production has their way about it. And maybe she's kind of hoping for a redemption season 11 a la Catherine Dennis of Southern Charm, right? Like, she can do it, you can do it.
I don't know. It's going to be pretty hard for her, I think, to come back from this. What's interesting too is I wonder like what Schwartz is going to do, because he's mentioned, I think he was on like Jax's podcast, and it was like the first time that we actually saw him being even a little bit what's the word, like
honest, open, real.
Yeah, or just kind of like saying that what Sandoval did was really bad, and like he understands that he wants the ability to say his side and stuff, but like that he just can't do that right now, like after what he did. Like I forget what the exact words were, but basically he's like, he can't say his side right now.
Yeah.
And like, is he gonna stay super blindly loyal? I wonder.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what kind of gives me some hope that we're gonna get a pretty interesting version of Schwartz's storyline next year too, right? Because if he's not closely aligned with Sandoval, then he's going to have to reach out to the rest of the group, and that's going to mean that he's going to have to, find a way to work with Katie and maybe hopefully acknowledge some of the things that have happened that we didn't get addressed in this reunion. And he's probably going to have to work with James a little bit more. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics that are really going to potentially come out of season 11, because there's just so much like tension, and there's obviously going to be some people that just will not film together. I think Ariana and Sheena being kind of like the two key ones in all that. Even Lala, did you see Lala's like most recent like TMZ video?
I don't think so.
She got like interviewed at like the airport or whatever when she was coming back from New York City. And I think Lala's starting to break a little bit and see how that was a really intense reunion. And I think a lot of the like the emotions were very high, and they really went after Raquel. And I think she's starting to like maybe kind of regret that a little bit. Just maybe the level of like magnitude that they like went after her for.
Oh, really?
All of this. So I think
what did she say in that?
More than anything, just kind of like that she, after the reunion had filmed, she went home and she felt dirty. And now that she's like rewatched it and she's seen it like, all these like 2 months later, I think. Yeah, basically like 2 months later. She's like feeling a lot more kind of like regretful about how it all kind of came out, and how Raquel like kind of got so much of the blame when she clearly wasn't in a good place.
Right. Well, Raquel also said on the Watch What not Raquel, oh my gosh, Lala said on the Watch What Happens Live, like watching that confessional, like you saw just the degree of manipulation that was coming from Tom, and like she actually didn't know how to feel about it either, and like she was one of the ones who was really leading the charge against her.
Yeah.
I think that's why this situation is obviously so tricky to even talk about, because like there's just, like we were saying earlier, like there's just so many levels to it. Like what she did was completely indefensible. Like this is not a stable person.
Yeah.
And I think as she like does actually work on herself and like understands like the severity of what she had done, maybe we'll start to see something different. Yeah. I think that was like just at least why I had such a problem with the reunion, was just like the fact that she just seems so like totally detached, and like she just really didn't seem to understand the severity of the situation and like what she had done and the betrayal that she had done, like and maybe that's because they were so on the defensive and they just like burrowed into each other as a unit. But
but I think also to a certain extent, like throughout her years on Vanderpump Rules, Raquel has been kind of like weirdly devoid of emotion, and she's been kind of like weirdly like, I'm not dumb, Lala. Like she's had a lot of like, she's saying words phonetically, she's not actually like feeling them in the moment. She's just kind of like saying whatever she needs to say to like beat down like another accusation against like James's cheating or whatever it might be. So like I don't know what that means for kind of like who Raquel really is on the inside, but maybe we'll get kind of like a little bit more of a real authentic version of her in the next season. Maybe this is the real authentic version of her. I just don't
think anyone wants to see her anymore. Like it's just like
her or Tom, like that last scene with the
No.
two of them in their dressing room at the end of the at
Oh
the end of the
yeah.
reunion was so awkward. It was
There's
so weird.
they're so awkward together, and also just like again, like
No
it makes you be
chemistry.
like, no, like
No
no, like
chemistry.
no one's home. Like literally, like at first I used to think Lala was being mean, but like like I think she's like, seeing it all played out in front of me, like I'm
Yeah.
noticing like all the bad things that we've done, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Di- are you just now realizing this?
I know.
Like,
I feel like I've seen like so many memes about like Kylie Jenner, this is the year of realizing things. Like this is very much Raquel's like this is the year of realizing things.
yeah, I'm gonna learn from this situation and try to be a better friend. And like, it's a learning experience. Like, this is not a learning experience. Like, this is a character flaw.
This is unfortunately a character flaw. You have made a horrible, horrible mistake.
Multiple times. And
Multiple
then
times.
just to wrap everything back up, I know there's obviously pieces that were left out because
there's just too much.
there's just too much
It
to
went
talk
all over
about.
the place.
Yeah, definitely feel free to leave some in the comments. How did you feel after this reunion? But I think the craziest thing that came out of it, like we were saying at the beginning, is just like that she really disproved everything we had just seen in this reunion.
6 days later.
Yeah,
just 6 days later.
They just have no leg to stand on. Like the one thing that Tom kept saying adamantly was, oh my God. The thought just went right out of my head.
It happened only one time.
Yeah, it only happened one time, which we now know did not happen only one time. These two people do kind of deserve each other. What were your favorite moments of this reunion that we didn't talk about?
Oh my God. Honestly, it was just like the peanut gallery the entire time. Like I loved the fact that everybody was jumping in so much, so readily. Like it did make it very hard to like follow the track of the story and like understand what was going on at any given moment. But it was massively entertaining.
It was. Every time they would laugh when like Tom and Raquel tried to like play their little tiny violin, everyone's just like, no, I'm sorry, I can't. Like
yeah, and I think just kind of like seeing the support, like I don't think we've ever seen such a united cast. Obviously only like part of the cast, but like the part that was like united were like very vehemently united on their side.
It's true.
And so that was kind of like fun to get to see as well. Like that doesn't usually happen. I think a lot of the times it's a lot more like situations that aren't black and white, and the situation still isn't black and white, but I think the feelings were very much black and white.
No, 100%. There's also when Ariana was just saying how like nice it was, and like how hearing everyone kind of like rally around her is what kept her going. It was like such a heartbreaking and raw moment, which is just funny because I feel like Tom Schwartz kind of set that moment up by being like, isn't it a funny juxtaposition that like everyone's rallying around Ariana, but like Tom is like the most hated man in America? Like, I guess he was trying to deflect. I think he was trying to be like, oh, it's not fair what's happening to Tom. But then like that actually just opened up a really great and like sincere moment from Ariana for us all to be like, we love you. Yeah.
I even think that he was just like I think he wanted to like have Ariana kind of like admit that like while she's experiencing her like lowest lows, she's also kind of like, it's great that the nation is kind of like uniting behind her. And it's like, Tom, really like not the time. Like why are you trying to make another point? You've already failed.
It's just a funny juxtaposition. Don't you find the juxtaposition?
I know that everybody loves you all of a sudden now.
I know the word juxtaposition. Did we notice?
So you guys have to hear me say all these big words. Sorry.
My last one that we didn't get to talk about right here was the whole like how just like disgusting and messed up it was that Sandoval dressed up as Raquel for Halloween, that I guess Lisa Vanderpump was just now realizing.
Had no
and
idea about.
She's like, that's bizarre. Like, why would you do that? And when she had to coach him to go and say sorry because he could not get there on his own, and she saw her business investment going up in smoke, and she's like, just say sorry. Just tell them you're sorry.
Get one good sorry in there and you'll be good to go.
Like, just please cry. Just cry.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely let us know what you guys thought, how you felt about the reunion, how you felt about Scandoval overall, and how you're gonna be able to continue going forward in life now that it's over.
What do we do?
What are you gonna do? Just sit here and wait for next year now.
Just watch all of Ariana's amazing commercials coming out and all of her business endeavors, and just support her forever.
Keep it going. Love it.